one of the greatest African American actresses that ever lived. She was the first African American female to be nominated for the first Academy Award and was able to have a stable career for over 30 years. She was able to work with many actors and actresses in Hollywood, yet would have problems with being accepted and even being accepted as a leading lady on the big screen due to her color. With all the negative press given to her, she was still able to rise to the top and will be talked about today in this biography. This is the beautiful Dorothy Dandridge, and this is her basic biography. Early life. Dorothy Dandridge was born in Cleveland, Ohio, USA, on the 9th of November 1922. Her mother was an actress herself, and her father was a carpenter that would make cabinets for someone who needed his work, and sometimes spent time as a church minister at the local church. She was able to live with her sisters as well, and even would sometimes work with a singing trio together, as called the Wonder Children, during the 1920s to the 1930s. She would attend school and would be able to relocate to the South of the United States in the 1930s and even through the Great Depression. Whilst growing up, she and her family would be racially abused by African American people and had less chances of getting some work as a singer or a dancer down south of the USA. Her parents would be broken up at the time, with her mother getting remarried or finding another man to fall in love with to keep her family in a good position in society. Dorothy Dandridge would spend time performing and singing with her sisters on stage and even touring around the United States. But one of her sisters would go on to Hollywood to become an actress, with Dorothy Dandridge herself and her one of the other sisters still working on tours around the United States, even teaming up with singer Etta Jones in the mid 1930s to become a touring group themselves and eventually moved to the New York City later in their career. Acting career. Dorothy Dandridge would work in the Cotton Club in New York when she met with her friend Etta Jones, and the two worked throughout the 1930s as a new African American band in the United States that allowed everyone around the New York state to come and see the Dandridge sisters performing live on stage. This was a great beginning for the young Dorothy Dandridge, with one of the sisters that was in the original group being supportive of them, of both her and even Etta Jones, allowing other stage performers to come and join their band, such as Louis Armstrong to Billy Robinson. She was able to make it to Hollywood with her aspirations of being the first leading African American female actress and on the big screen. Her first performance on the silver screen was in the 1940s in the 1940 film Fall Shall Die, and having this beauty becoming a leading star actress, but would be shunned due to being an African American in a majority white Hollywood. She was given only bit roles in Hollywood straight afterwards, and would star in westerns to musicals by various production companies in Hollywood. Within her Hollywood career, beginning with an uneasy start, she still managed to get more movie roles within the 1940s. But these were not the war films or the major hit blockbuster movies that most actors and actresses were able to obtain being hired in Hollywood. No, she was starring in other movies that were excelling other actors at the time. She starred in another film, but in 1941, that would excel the career of John Wayne, but not her own. And this film was called Lady from Louisiana. Then starring in Ride 'em Cowboy in 1942 with comedy duo Abbott and Costello. Breaking into Hollywood as a new lead, Dorothy Dandridge was able to be a breakout star in Hollywood during the 1950s, as she was star in Tarzan's Peril in 1951. by being a lead actress and even having a co-star such as Lex Baker playing as Tarzan. She was able to play Queen of Ashruba in that film. From that movie, she managed to get more movie roles that would make her one of the first African American actresses to become a leading actress on the silver screen, but not big as expected. The other films in the 1950s she starred in was The Globetrotters in 1951 and even Bright Road in 1953. Even making a television appearance in various adverts and performing live in London, as well as going touring around the world, due to being one of the first African American actors or actresses to make it big in Hollywood. She was able to star in her main breakout role, Carmen Jones, in 1953, as this movie came out in the same year as her being nominated for an Academy Award based on the other awards she will be that would be pending on her list to be nominated for. She was able to work on stage as well as the movie scene with her talents of singing and even dancing to many audiences. The 1960s would have her working on a big stage performance, such as the West Side Story, that would make her well known around the world, and even spending some time on Broadway to keep her acting career alive. Dorothy Dandridge would even be a known actress by playing a character called Norma Sherman in two movies in the 1960s. And these were the Murder Men and even Kane's 100, both filmed and even presented from 1961 to 1962. Personal life and final years. Dorothy Dandridge was married at least two times in her life. Her first husband was called Harold Nicholas, and he and her had a relationship from 1942 to 1951. They both had a child together. Her second husband was Jack Dennison, and their marriage lasted from 1959 to 1962. She would have trouble in her later life, as she was one of the first African American actresses that actually made it big in Hollywood during a time where human rights were not as prevalent as the modern day. She would still be contributing to the acting and singing um, styles of acting in her later career by performing live on stage and even sometimes recording songs that she was able to provide live performances for audiences in the United States, even sometimes around the world. Sometimes spending time with supporting Democrats in the 1950s with a chance to become a activist for human rights for African Americans in the United States. She would star in a last film role called Marco Polo in 1962, and then her last television appearance in 1956. Legacy of a Beautiful Woman. Sadly, Dorothy Dandridge would pass away on the 8th of December 1965, and she would die of an overdose due to her private life being so tragic and even sometimes being too much for her, as she was one of the leading and even the first African American actresses that had to deal with racism and prejudice from an industry that she spent most of her life working to become a leading actress and later becoming an icon. However, she left a legacy within Hollywood that would be able to accept African Americans to become big mainstay actors on the silver screen and even become icons themselves. There are many actors and actresses that have thanked Dorothy Dandridge for her inspiring them to become part of Hollywood and even work in various genres as an African American community, as well as being big in Hollywood themselves. Actresses such as Halle Berry and Angela Bassett were able to be inspired by Dorothy Dandridge and would portray her on the silver screen again in various biographies about her. After her death, Dorothy Dandridge is able to contribute more to the African American community and even was remembered on the Hollywood Star Walk of Fame to being one of the greatest African American women that has ever lived. Thank you for watching. Sorry for it being quite a rush. My previous and even the original recording was actually destroyed and wouldn't were able to work, so I had to re-record this. So thank you for watching, and please find out if you'd like to see more content. Please have time to subscribe and watch more. Now, once again, my name is Suki Cookie, and thank you for watching. Please subscribe if you haven't done so.